Young Mary, one of William's many grandchildren, lived next door to her grandfather. Mary had a quiet disposition. Her grandfather did not. He was loud, and was often heard bellowing at barnyard animals, as if giving orders to his former crew. Mary kindly attributed his bellowing to a certain loss of hearing. For others, it confirmed that the old skipper was a bit contrary. Life had become simpler for her grandfather since he retired from the sea. No longer did he shoulder great responsibility and assume unquestioned authority. Anxious men no longer looked to him to make decisions that would affect their livelihood, and sometimes their very lives. His days of wrestling with ocean, wind, and tide were behind him. Yet, even in retirement, life had charged her grandfather with responsibilities. Each morning he would rise early to visit the 3 homes where Mary and the other grandchildren lived. The 3 homes were within walking distance. Cane in hand, he would make his rounds and inquire of the health of his grandchildren. He took the pulse of every child claiming to be ill. If a child was found ailing, and not merely trying to skip school, he would return to his home for a pitcher of gruel. The old man had great faith in the curative powers of gruel, though the grandchildren were never sure of its ingredients. He would then order bed rest for his patient, and return again later to see if the gruel had restored the child to health. Having completed his rounds, Mary's grandfather would spend his days pacing his veranda platform, just as he had paced a ship's deck when at sea. However, rather than keeping a sharp outlook for rocky shoals, the old man kept his eyes on his grandchildren, particularly his grandsons, who seemed to have a knack for making mischief. How many times, Mary often wondered, would her grandfather have to tell her cousin Truman or her brothers not to walk through his prized bluebells? The old man's final duty each day involved lowering the Union Jack. Every morning, Mary watched her grandfather ceremoniously raise the flag, and every evening she watched as he lowered it, just as he had done for so many years at sea. Having taken the flag down, her grandfather would carefully fold it, making sure it never ever touched the ground. He took great pride in the flag. The flag had been a bit of home that he had taken with him as he had traveled to ports throughout the world. Mary's favorite times with her grandfather were those she spent alone with him on the veranda. During these times, Mary would listen intently as her grandfather relived tales from the high seas and recited the poetry of Robbie Burns. Years later, Mary reflected on these times and said, "There were the quiet times, when he was found sitting in his chair on the veranda, gazing out on the bay, probably reliving many of his former sailing experiences. I sat quietly on the doorstep with him, and he would recite the poetry of Robbie Burns. A favorite of his was My Sweet Highland Mary. As a child, I sometimes wondered if he had written the poem just for me. I still remember it. Ye banks and braes and streams around the castles of Montgomery, green be your woods and fair your flowers, your waters never drummy. There summer first unfolds her robes, and there the longest tarry. 'Twas there I took the last farewell of my sweet Highland Mary." Mary said it appeared to some that the old skipper's disposition was somewhat stern and callous. They may have thought differently had they heard the old man quietly reciting poetry to a cherished granddaughter.